that's lucky. No, well, you're all right. It does change a bit. Do any of you know Patchwork as a company?
No.
No? Yes, right. I'm going to tell you a story, an inspiring story, about how to be a business person against all adversities. I'll start off by saying that I'm from South America. And secondly, I'm a chronic dyslexic. And one of the things that I always thought, having watched the movies, is that I would be a kept woman, that I would have somebody in a white charger come and take care of me, and I would have all my bills paid, and my life was going to be like in the movies. And somehow the bloody movie wasn't right, and it wasn't like that, and I had to actually make it happen for myself. So the first thing that happened was that I came to the UK from the Bahamas, where I lived and was married in Nassau, and my husband, who was an architect, he's died recently, but was an architect, we were doing fine here in the UK, but money wasn't as good as it had been and needed to be. So I decided, the first thing I decided I would do was, I have two small children in a very damp, two-bedroomed little cottage with a lean-to bathroom, and which was a kitchen, and an outside loo, and down. And one of the other things about that particular place, and it's relevant to the next part of what I'm going to tell you, was that it was so damp that the wallpaper used to roll off the walls in the morning, and we had rush matting. Some of you will remember, old enough to know what rush matting was. Rush matting on the floor that was soaking wet, so I had to, we had to dry that out occasionally. And my husband, who was 6'2", would sit across like that. His head would be on one wall, his feet would be on the other. That's how small it was. And so I decided that what I would do to help supplement, and the thing you need to know is that I came from a background that was not entrepreneurial. I was not taught entrepreneurship. I was, my family were bankers, so I didn't have anything in my background to teach me the things that I've done. And so what happened was I decided to supplement supplement the income rather, and I made some tissue paper flowers. I did Avon, I did felt pictures for children on the wall, and I can't remember, I did 4 things, and I can't remember what the other one was. And the tissue paper flower one was one who really taught me to make something and sell. The others were services, and I got commission. You all know about those things. Oh, I think it must be Tupperware, Avon and Tupperware. So anyhow, so the tissue paper flowers, and the reason I tell you the story about the cottage being damp is that tissue paper and damp don't go together. So, and a small mini and 2 small kids in nappies and no safety belts, because there were no safety belts in those days, didn't go together either. So I made the tissue flowers, and I went to my first port of call to sell them. And one of the things which, only make a product, if only make products and sell them of anything, because it's when you're selling a service, I suppose it's the same, but when you're selling a product, even now when I do it for Patchwork, you kind of have a sense of panic that you're going to get rejected and somebody's not going to take you seriously and all that palaver. So anyhow, so I appeared to sell these paper flowers, and the guy smelt my fear and said, "Lucky dear." Wasn't that bad?
Oh, sorry.
Deodorant. But there is something about you when you're afraid that other people pick up on intuitively. So what happened was that he knocked me down to half price. And I went, yes, because I was so grateful that he wanted the damn things. So I did very well. I sold them. They were window decorations, and I delivered them, and everything was fine. I was making them, and everything was good. And then, of course, because it was flower power time, it had a time span on it, and it then wasn't a product that was wanted anymore. So I had to come up with another idea. So I then slipped immediately into the next high fashion, which was chokers. So I made these chokers, neck things with beads and feathers and Velcro and leather and velvet and all of that. And I got quite nutty at doing this, nutty at making the things, and very good at selling them. And I thought, girl doing good here. So I got myself to Harrods Way Inn, and I got myself to this and to that, and to Smith Selfridges, and I was thinking, girl doing good here. So I was really pleased with myself that that was going well, and I was enjoying it because I'm very creative, so I thought, right, that's going well. And then overnight, and I was also selling them to places that I was creative in where I sold them. Hairdressers in those days didn't do anything other than hairdressing. But one guy, and he's very famous, like Joseph's, I mean, I know Joseph Clothing now, but Joseph, one of the Joseph guys, had a counter at reception and sold my chokers. And then I made beady hats, little beaded hat things. And I got really creative, and I was really, really excited about this. But the government brought in a tax overnight, and there was a 17.5% added onto the product that I was making, which made it not a viable product anymore, which was a bummer. And so I kind of lost that business overnight, and I went, oh God, now what? And I thought, right, so I never have known, even when I tell the story, what on earth got me off my arse and not a victim or feeling sorry for myself that things were not working out. I got myself to a shop in Kensington, and there were two guys that ran it, and I helped them for 2 hours. I hoovered, I did this, I made them teas, coffees, and I hung up clothes, and I tidied up, and I did stuff. And I kept saying to them, what can I do, what can I do? I need to earn an income. And they gave me all sorts of suggestions, as you know, the sort of suggestion, how the hell do I get this bloody woman out of here? She's still here 2 hours later, and asked me to make leather jackets. I am a seamstress, and I can do bound buttonholes. And I thought, no, I can't do leather jackets, make an income. And they suggested all sorts of stuff. And then, again, I say over and over again to all of us, is that there are things that come our way, and it's up to us to recognize them as and make something good out of them. Because what happens so often when we're in a shitty place is that we kind of think that woe is us, and it's everything against it. It's not fair. It's everything happens to me. Well, I've been very, very blessed. I don't know why, but I've never done that. So I thank whoever created me for that, because I haven't had to work at that one. And so what happened was, some knitwear got delivered. I do know sweet F all about knitting, right? I don't anything to do with knitting. And this knitwear arrived, and it was high fashion. It was rainbow sweaters, which were 1-inch bands back and front, and I can't remember the name of it. It was in the days of Sandra Rhodes and all those people. And so it wasn't her, by the way. But so I started putting these sweaters away, and the guys in sheer desperation said, well, can you knit? Yes, I said, hit the pavement. I went, oh, I don't have any knitters, I don't know how to knit, I don't know how to do any of this. But there was a bank of four red telephone boxes opposite. Now, the thing which is amazing for me again is if I were to get here, even with sat-nav, is an unbelievable trauma for me. I don't do left and right, I don't remember, I don't recognise stuff, I never know where I am. And I always leave half an hour, because it's a nightmare for me to get anywhere. And I make that many mistakes, even with sat-nav I make that many mistakes. I made one here and found myself, and I kept looking at the mileage. The mileage was going down, so I thought I must be getting closer, but God knows where I am, because the sat-nav had gone off God knows where. So anyhow, so that kind of, so I get these sweaters get delivered, and so I get myself to these phone boxes, and I look up Peyton and Baldwin's, which is on the other side of London. I couldn't do that today. I mean, it's just like how I did it in a minute from Kensington High Street, or off Church Street, over to this warehouse. And when I got there, the gaffer, a real proper gaffer, went, oh, I can't sell you. Well, I don't know who you are. You don't have an account with me. And I went, oh my God. So I cried. And I said, oh, please, I've got some small children. I've just lost my business. And he went, oh, right. So I bought my 7 rainbow-coloured bunches of packets of wool, and I remembered one of my outworkers, and this is another thing with all of you who are self-employed, is that when you have to get out of bed for your mortgage, and you then employ, or you have other people that are working for you, you have to get out of bed for them as well. So it's not that, oh, woe is me, and it will all sort of work out. It won't work out unless you get off your ass and make it happen. So I had a lady who had just built a garage, or was building a garage, and she worked for me making these chokers. And I knew that if I didn't come home with another business, she was stuffed, I was stuffed, she was stuffed. But I also remembered that she had a knitting machine in her entrance hall. So I rang her up and I said, right, if I bring some wool and bring a sweat, she said, go on, let's give it a go. So I hung over her and sort of, you know, tried to be helpful, not knowing a damn thing about anything to do with knitting. And she finally said to me, will you go home and just leave me alone? I'll phone you when I finish the thing. So bless her, she phoned me up and we sewed it up together, and I legged it back to London. And I went, what do you reckon, boys? And they went, yeah, that's all right. And they said, can you make 200? I hit the pavement and went, yes! I went, oh, now what? So I'd go all the way back to the guy, and I had said to the guy, trust me, I will be successful, because I knew I had to be successful. This is the Peyton Baldwin man. So I legged it back again, stuffed the car with the wool, legged it back to her. Remember, I knew nothing about knitting, and remember that I had one lady that I knew. So, and also one of the things, there's a lady who does high fashion here, is that high fashion is a nanosecond turnaround. You have to make, deliver, because you get copied and you've lost the moment. So she found somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, and then between us we sewed this bloody lot up together and then delivered. And that was the start of a knitwear business from somebody who knew nothing. So you can, again, I encourage you that any of us can do anything if your back's against the wall and you need to get off your arse and make money or make things happen. So I started this business and it was going really well. I had worked with lots of designers. Bieber was one of them, if anybody can remember those names. Lee Bender was a very famous woman in her time. And again, I've been also very lucky. She asked me, designed a sweater, and there were puffy sleeves. I remember it being black with a square neck without any ribbing on it, fitted, etc., etc. And she wanted a cascade of strawberries down the front. But I didn't realise that what she'd asked me for was a knit in something called intarsia, which I later learned, which is you knit with all the threads behind. And I didn't know that, so I knitted a set of 5321 strawberries, and I sewed them on by hand. And she thought I was the DBs in design. She was so impressed with me. But little did she know that I only did it because I didn't know how else to bloody do it. But it set up a whole trend, and out of ignorance and out of making something happen. So I then ended up doing lots of different things like that. And a funny, silly story here, which is why I don't like newspapers and press and trust anything, is I was in a changing room, and there was in one of the big department stores in London, just recently, in the last 10, 15 years, and there was a hardback book in there from Bieber, which is Bieber, I can't remember her name, it begins with H. Something, it's a weird, yes, it's a weird name. Yeah. Right, and what happened, it was a book about her business, and she'd got, or that publisher had put this strawberry photograph in, which was a garment from Lee Bender, a chain of shops called Bus Stop. And I thought, I don't bloody believe anything. So everything I look at, newspapers and everything, I go, yeah, whatever. So anyhow, moving on, I then got myself a really tidy business. I was earning good money, enough to help with my husband, to buy a proper house with proper bathrooms and proper floors, 2 or 3 floors, and and I got more and more outworkers, and one of the things again about outworkers is that they have a code of conduct which is not very desirable, and what they do is I'm slamming them all here with one brush, by the way. Sorry if it's anybody who's an outworker or who knows any outworkers, but in the rag trade going back 45 years now was that something called cabbage, and what cabbage in the rag trade is that I give you enough to make me 5 things, and you make all my things smaller and make 6 things and sell one down at the pub. So that's how that one works. So to keep on top of these outworkers, to produce handmade garments, to go very quickly into a fast-moving business was very, very challenging. And the other thing about these outworkers, which was also amazing, was the fact that all their husbands, they lived on a road between 1 and 100, or 1 and 700, in Croydon this was, and most of them happened to be in that area for some reason or other. And the hallways had the weirdest stack of nicked products from each other's lorry drivers, from Coca-Cola to T-shirts to lube brushes to bloody anything, that they'd all swapped. So any outworker I went to had a selection of stuff swapped from other drivers. So you can imagine trying to keep track of the knitwear and trying to make a business with that mentality was not an easy one.